Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Tonight we are on Richard and Stephanie's balcony, where we're going to be watching the afternoon sun. Stephanie's going to be playing a few relaxing pieces on the harp for us, and we're going to be discussing our future plans. So, without further ado, here's Stephanie on the harp. Well, thank you very much, Stephanie. That was a really, really beautiful performance. Really nice to have the water behind you and the view as well, and there was sort of a golden light, I think, coming down from the sun. Thank you to everyone who's been watching as well, and everyone who's been commenting. Um, we'll be reading out your comments later on, so stay tuned. Um, Now, you might know that we have been experimenting over the last few months. Traditionally, One City, One Light, we do live events, we do live concerts, performances, that sort of thing. So with the lockdown, we've had to adapt slightly. And this has been really good in some ways. I mean, the things that we have learned over this last month has been pretty incredible, really. Um, for one, we've learned how to live stream, and now we can do things like this where we have multiple different camera angles, guests from remote places. We can have harp performances. I don't know if you've seen Richard's live electronic performances, but these are all things that we've managed to learn over lockdown. So we're in some ways we're very appreciative. Um, Having said that, lockdown has now changed, and I think for us as a company, we're also going to be changing as well. Um, so with me tonight, I have Richard McLester, who is one of the artists at One City Light, One Light, and he's there with Stephanie. So Richard, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, sir. Very, very good. What an amazing start to summer, eh? This is what it's all about.
Yeah, I think for you and Stephanie to have that balcony, I think you're very lucky.
Yeah, we are really, really lucky. Yeah, we are extremely lucky, to be honest. It's not really until you get things like lockdown and these kind of things that you kind of realize how important your locality is, really. And I feel like it's something that we didn't really appreciate maybe just a few months ago, but that's kind of all brought it back into reality. And you can kind of see that across like the whole of the UK. I mean, we've watched all these people come over the last couple of weeks down to the beach, and we've seen it. It's so busy down here. I mean, like literally, we don't think we've ever seen it this busy, do we? It's even a high summer, the last few years, the amount of people down here hasn't been as great, and it's been great, to be honest, because we've also been able to see like lots of families getting together and gathering outside, and it's really cool to see actually, like families and groups getting together and doing things together with people rather than kind of just congregating and maybe all going off and doing different things. So it's been fantastic, really, to see that. So certainly, there's definitely been a shift in the way people are kind of reacting and what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's that for me anyway. It's been something where something is taken away from you suddenly makes the thing that you don't have suddenly a lot more appealing, and I think people's perspective on the outside has changed considerably, and yeah, it's an interesting time now, and I think can you talk about maybe why today, the first day of summer, you decided to go outside other than the weather? Uh,
Well, we've been super lucky with the weather. I wasn't expecting it to be this great tonight. But one of the reasons we wanted to go outside and to sort of celebrate the start of summer was certainly, since March we've been in this very draconian lockdown where we've all had to stay inside. And over the last couple of weeks, we started to see that kind of ease. And I know today, for the first time, people are allowed in groups of six, and people who are shielding, they're being allowed to go out if they'd like to. So we're kind of in this sort of like weird sort of semi-state of semi-lockdown where we're not, it's not back to normal by any stretch of the imagination. We're still in like alert level 4 because of the pandemic, but certainly we're no longer confined to our homes as we were, and it kind of puts us in this sort of bit of a quandary, I think, as artists. I know, Stephanie, we've found this a little bit, haven't we? Because it's it's no longer about um, uh, you know, uh, experimenting what you've got just on your own. You feel like all of a sudden you're starting to be able to reconnect a little bit with people, but we're not yet sure what that means and how that's going to work. So it's being creative and seeing how that journey is going to unfold over the next month or couple of months.
hmm. I think maybe I can ask Stephanie this. So we've had the pleasure of of seeing your live harp performances over the last few months. I was just wondering what your thoughts on maybe how lockdown is progressing and how that might start influencing your future performances a bit more.
I have to admit, I've quite enjoyed lockdown because I've had loads of time to learn new music. And I've had these projects in my mind that I've wanted to do, but haven't had the time. And so, a couple of the projects I want to do, I'm a big fan of the TV series Outlander, which I'm quite sure listeners are as well. And it's set in 18th century Scotland. And the costumes, and I love the soundtrack. And one of my things I wanted to do was tie in really well with the Celtic Harp to learn a whole load of Scottish music from that era and make the costume to go with it. And out of lockdown, I take that round to places where I would normally perform, like museums and places like that. Cars would be. And the other project I wanted to do was I wanted to so yeah, I want to make a Jane Austen costume so that I could go and play that, and then also take part in the Jane Austen parade in Bath one year with a couple of friends who are also as mad as I am.
What is the Jane Austen parade, and what do you have to do to qualify?
Well, you have to pay. you have to pay, and you have to dress up in the costumes of the era, and just walk around Bath. It sounds great. And then there's a whole like festival, so there's like talks and concerts and things. It looks really great, and I haven't had the chance to go, and I don't think this September it'll be on, which is a shame, but I'd like to do that. And the other thing I've had the chance in lockdown to do is to do a whole load of videos of me playing the pieces that I teach the harp to my pupils. And so I did all these videos, and I was like, right, how do I get them on a web page? And Richard was like, you need to learn CSS. You need to learn how to program up a website. So I have spent the last 8 weeks doing an online course on it, and I'm actually, out of everything, I'm actually enjoying that the most. Strangely enough. It's kind of got a logic to it that just makes sense. So actually, yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to have the best website out of everyone at the end of this.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as it's up and ready, we will spread it to the world, I'm sure. Richard, or maybe I could. I mean, Ashley, I'd love to ask a bit more about the differences between sort of coding and the parts of the brain that engages, and say musical performances as well. I know Richard, you're both a coder and a musical performer as well. So maybe you could touch on some of the differences there.
Sure, Sam. I think it's I tell you what, they are two kind of separate skills, because coding is like super logical, and sometimes you kind of have to do the super logical bit, and then you have to come away and also sometimes just free yourself up a little bit and say, do you know what, forget what's possible and let's just go with what you want to do. And I think that's what is really, really cool about what both of us have been doing the last couple of weeks, because I think I kind of like to. I think I like to know what's logical, and then I kind of like up on that. But at the same time, hasn't been really possible over the last few weeks to kind of take that approach, because you've got to try new things and you've got to go open your possibilities. So for me, lockdown's been about sort of going back to the drawing board and really thinking, well, this is the current situation. This is the moment in time that we're in. What can I do, and how can I adapt what I've been doing to that? And that's why you've seen sort of the ambient electronica coming out over the last few weeks, where I've kind of really stripped it back and gone back to that. And where Stephanie, I think you're super creative in your outlook, and you've been like, I want to do this, and I'm thinking, well, do you know what? The only person that's going to help you is going to be me. So I can't keep up with you. So I sort of said to Stephanie, well, do you know what? Why don't you come on the other side of the fence and have a look and see what the other part of the world's like on that side, and see that. And so Stephanie's been working hard at that. So they are kind of two like separate heads that you have to put on, and you kind of go into zones, as it were. So some weeks you might be in a coding zone, and some weeks you might be in a super creative zone. Or that's how I find I am.
Yeah, I think it's good to be able to jump between these things. I think definitely for the brain to be able to bounce around a bit is probably fairly healthy. Speaking of learning new things, though, Richard, you've obviously been experimenting with more electronic live looping performances. I was wondering, with the new situation and how you see things going forward, maybe what kind of plans you have artistically, what you'd like to do with this new space and how you'd like to reach people.
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, when we kind of came into lockdown, I think it was fair to say that we were thinking in terms of projects that are really big, and all the projects I've done over the last 5 years have been big projects. They've kind of involved a lot of people, and you're not really thinking so much about yourself. You're kind of thinking how to involve people in them. And lockdown's kind of turned that on its head and said, well, actually, you can't really involve people that much. You can. So what's it going to be about you? And I found that, I'll be honest, I found that quite difficult. And so the ambient electronica sets that I've done have kind of given me the space to kind of go back to myself and say, what do I want to do, and what can I learn? And I'll be honest that, I spent a huge amount of time sort of looking at it and learning what the different options are and how it fits in. And I still don't think I'm there. It's still a journey that I want to carry on. And so definitely over the next few weeks, I'm going to carry on experimenting. I think if you look back at those sessions, you won't really find a tangible thread between them. Each one is probably a little bit different, I think, in itself, and there are great moments in some of them and not so great moments, I would argue, as well. They're definitely like on the edge, kind of experimental. They weren't designed as sessions that you kind of sit there and listen and go, that's the perfect session. So that they were about pushing it and learning for me. I've just obviously done it in front of a live audience on the internet. Which is another new thing. I mean, that's new, isn't it? I mean, normally you kind of go away for a few weeks, you practice, and you come back. Well, lockdown hasn't really doesn't really afford you the time to do that. You've kind of got to push yourself and keep in touch with people. So, but I think as we go through the next, well, certainly through June. I mean, like I said, you can see that people are already thinking outside of that, and indoors is never going to really be enough for people, I think. So it's for me, the challenge is going to be, how do I link what I've been learning over the last few weeks and kind of start to take that outside and engage and make it relevant, really. And I don't quite know how I'm going to do that, but certainly one of the things that we've been thinking about is getting the drone out again, and making a program called Flight, which will be about highlighting maybe different parts of our local natural area, and you can see how beautiful it is. So we're going to sort of pick different times of the day and create little reflections around that, and then introduce the live music and some live ambient music underneath that to kind of give people a different perspective on the world. Because I'm also keenly aware that there are lots of people that can't get out anymore. It's not everybody goes back out and everybody's back to normal. There are still lots of people who can't make it out for whatever reason. So certainly one of the things we want to keep focused on is giving people the ability to get outside and to enjoy the freedoms that we have access to down here. So that's certainly, Flight is certainly something that we're going to be looking at over the next few weeks and promoting on the live stream.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, we will be posting more about Flight as that develops as well. Stephanie, I know that you, we spoke last week about the inspiration for some of your works and how often it's these moments of stillness. You were talking about how you were sat on the shore of Brownsea Island and the very, very sort of gentle waves were just sort of lapping up and creating this sort of soft tinkling sound, like maybe glass bottles or something. You said something like that. Something maybe a bit more peaceful, maybe. We talked about the importance of the outside world and how it influenced your work in that way. I'm just wondering how you feel about performing outside in itself, and whether you're maybe looking to do a bit more of that in the future. Okay. I think we're having some technical issues with the microphone here. So
Can you hear me now?
oh, brilliant! We've got you back, Stephanie.
Yay! We've got a spare microphone up here just in case. Yeah, I'd like to go back to some of the places that I've written music about. Maybe do like a little video of me playing there with my harp, because that'd be nice to put it into the context of where it was done, and also it'd be quite nice just to go for a walk sometimes in the evenings and just maybe write get some fresh inspiration, not necessarily take the harp out, but get some fresh inspiration for places to write music about.
I think that would be really nice. I mean, I know me personally, I know how nice Dorset is. I mean, just the view behind you there. I think, yeah, having worked in this area for so long and be able to experience places like that, I know that is an inspiration for me as well. And I think what me personally, I'd love to see you go back to some of these places that have inspired you. And I think that scene in my head of a harp, you maybe like a beautiful view, a cliff edge.
Yeah.
Some of those iconic Dorset locations. I think I personally would love to see that sort of performance in a location like that.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might have till it's calmed down a bit once everyone's got over like we're free for everyone to. I mean, like, I can't blame people for like this weekend. I know lockdown hadn't officially eased properly and everyone's like, whoa, let's go to Dorset, and I understand why, but maybe we can bring Dorset to them through videos.
I think so, yeah. If we can keep everyone safe and let them still access the beauty, I think that would be good. Richard, are you? Can I ask you, sort of, this idea of connecting the outdoors with musical performances? How do you think about how music helps people experience certain locations and how it can help them? Say, if you did a performance in a natural location, how the music might help them experience that place in a different light.
Yeah, definitely. I think we about this actually last week, because one of the things that we've been doing is thinking about how we connect and bring everything together, and we decided that both of us actually what we really wanted to do was to kind of create these moments that people can kind of go into and get lost in. And I feel like that's something you definitely do with the harp. I mean, it's amazing. You kind of, in the setting, it adds that kind of immersiveness to it, and you can go into the harp, can't you? And you can really feel the performance. And that's something I'd also like to do, with the electronic music and the ambience that we can create there with that. So we've got something that appeals maybe to both sides, both people. So people who love Celtic and people who love the original, like the medieval music, have got something, and then the people that like the modern sort of tech stuff, there's something for them as well. So it's how we connect that. Together. And that's but you're absolutely right. It's so key to put what you're doing into a location, then ask people to come into that world just for maybe 15-20 minutes of their time, because I don't know if you remember how it was before lockdown, but everyone's rushing around. There was so little time, it felt to me, that we really had, and lockdown's given us this kind of space to kind of stop for a little bit. And I'm sure we'll go back to the rolling momentum that we had before, but it would be lovely just to sort of hang on to that and to reconnect in moments, just by going into these spaces that we can do. And I should say, Sam, actually, one of the things that we've been doing over the last sort of a few days is then trying to reorganize our YouTube page so that we can twist around and to present that. So I know you played a big role in this as well, but it'd be good to get people's thoughts on that, really, and how we're starting to present that. This idea of moments, and that they can enter into those moments and then choose the moment they'd like to, and capture those moments.
Yeah, I think that idea of moments is really strong. We had a few comments tonight. So Tracy Dagley, she she commented, she says, "I've been transported to Poole," and gorgeous light and music. And we also had a comment from Chris Yetner Van Dyke, who says, "Watching from Alexandra, VA, USA. The soothing music is much appreciated after the difficult night last night here in the US. Music is so healing." So I think, yeah, just to be able to provide those moments of, I guess, stillness or something that people don't have by themselves. I think to be able to provide that and allow people to enter into those moments, and I think is really nice. We also had David Pickett, who said, "Beautiful music in a beautiful setting. Harbour and the balcony plants add so much visual ambience." So again, I think it's, yeah, people I think are liking the outdoor setting as well, which is good. I'm going to say thank you very much to everyone who's commented and watched tonight's live stream. Thank you to Richard and Stephanie for joining us and speaking about your ideas for the upcoming summer. And thank you again, Stephanie, very much for doing such a beautiful performance. So yes, thanks again to everyone who tuned in tonight. Tomorrow we're going to have another performance from Stephanie from the balcony. So if you want a nice moment of stillness with a beautiful view while the weather still lasts, then make sure to tune in tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Until then, have a lovely evening. Enjoy the rest of the day, and yeah, see you soon.